He walked out with such confidence. I'm center stage and I scream at Olu from in the wings and I say, "Why aren't you holding his hand?" And he looks at me and he's like, "He wouldn't let me." And little Jackson came out confident and he was at one point like waving and blowing kisses to the audience. And the next morning, he was telling people that he stole the show.
Hello, and welcome to Ground Control Parenting, a blog and now a podcast created for parents raising Black and brown children. I'm the creator and your host, Carol Sutton Lewis. In this podcast series, I talk with some really interesting people about the joy and the job of parenting. Today, I am thrilled to welcome Misty Copeland back to the podcast. Misty, as everyone knows, is a former principal dancer with the American Ballet Theatre and the first Black woman in the company's history to be promoted to that role. After a groundbreaking 25-year career, in October 2025, Misty took her final bow with ABT in a celebrated farewell performance. And as remarkable as that moment was, it was not an ending, it was the beginning of a transition to a powerful next chapter. These days, Misty is building her future beyond the stage. But first, she's had to do some physical rebuilding. Shortly after her farewell performance, Misty underwent a total hip replacement, the result of years of wear, tear, and injury and extraordinary physical demand on her body. She has had a remarkable recovery, which we witnessed with her triumphant solo on the stage of the Oscars, but it can't have been an easy journey. All of these transitions, physical, emotional, professional, take on new meaning when you're also a parent. Misty and her husband, Olu Evans, are raising their son Jackson, who's now 4. Hard to believe. When you were last on the podcast, he was 10 months.
Yes.
Now he's 4. Misty is navigating the balance of ambition, identity, and family, which we'll explore today. Welcome back to Ground Control Parenting, Misty.
Thank you. It's so exciting to be here again.
Oh, and I'm so glad to have you in person, actually, face to face. It's great. And I'm really looking forward to talking about this moment, how you're thinking about what comes next, and how motherhood plays into it all. So let's get started. So we have to start with the recovery. You've spoken about being in a season of healing, physically, mentally, emotionally. Are you feeling still in the midst of this season, or are you on the other side?
Yeah, it's interesting because you brought up the Oscars, which was an incredible experience and moment to be a part of, with that film and that scene in particular. But I would say I still am very much in this season of healing, but it looks different. In my everyday life, like I can sit without pain, which it's been over a year and a half since I've been able to sit and walk without pain. So in that way, it's like I feel somewhat normal again. But in so many other ways, like even though I performed at the Oscars, I'm still not in ballet class and back to that type of training. I'm doing physical therapy and things like that. But that idea of healing and finding I guess acceptance and normalcy with like this new body that I'm in is a constant, upkeep and, discovery. So I absolutely am still in the midst of it, but I feel great.
I'm really glad to hear that. I have to say, I was so thrilled to see you come onto the stage, and yet I went into a little bit of mom mode. It's like, wait a minute. Is it too soon? Look at her. She's really dancing beautifully, but is she going to be okay? So I'm very happy to see you looking very okay right now.
Thank you. I definitely got a lot of those text messages where they're like, what are you doing? Why are you on stage? And, and I definitely got the green light from my surgeon before I moved forward with that, where he really felt that I was strong enough to be able to do the things that we discussed. But it was such an opportunity that I didn't want to miss. And when Ryan Coogler and his team reached out, they mentioned that in the actual film, there's a Black ballerina that's in a red leotard, and it was inspired by me and even the idea of Firebird. So they were like, even if you just went on the stage and you just kind of moved your arms around, that's enough. And I was like, well, I don't want to do that. I got to do something more. So, I found what was suitable and comfortable for me, but it was a moment.
I'm very glad to hear that. It actually leads right into my next question, which is, you've spent a career pushing through pain.
Yes.
So ballet certainly demands that. And sometimes parenting demands that as well. So how have you learned to recognize the difference between being strong, being disciplined, and overextension. And then with the parenting part, like how do you model that for Jackson, or how do you want him to think about that?
Yeah, I think we might have talked about this the last time I was on, but just how much I've learned from my career, from being an athlete, from being a performer, that has really kind of translated into parenting for me. Just kind of learning through all the trials and tribulations, and that this is all a part of the journey, and how much I've learned through recovery and through the injuries that I've had, and just being able to be smarter about what it means to, what self-care means. And what's so fascinating is that my husband's had two, not hip replacements, it's very similar. He's had hip resurfacing surgery on both of his hips. The first one was before Jackson was born, but when Jackson went on his very first day of school, was the same day that Olu had his second hip resurfacing. So he witnessed that recovery. Then he witnessed my hip replacement surgery. And I remember him coming to my bedside and with this kind of concern, and saying, well, when I have my hip replaced, anticipating when he has a hip replacement. And I'm like, no, this isn't a normal occurrence in every household that he's going to
Mom,
experience.
Dad, it's my turn.
Yeah, so it's very interesting for him to be experiencing, seeing us both kind of go through this recovery process and what it means to like push your body. And we definitely have conversations. And I think that it's a nice conversation starter, even just what it means to take care of yourself, what I do for a profession, and kind of finding that balance. And that, I think he went to school and he said that mommy danced too much and broke her hip. So it's, it's really, getting him to understand, what it is I do as an athlete in kind of comparison to other sports and things that he watches, and that the balance of rest and, the food that I'm eating and sleep and that type of recovery, like we're having those conversations. And so he's understanding, even in his small world and through the ballet that he does and violin and all of the activities that he does, that, that it's very similar and aligned.
That's really good. It's really good to start so early, because now you see legions of young people who just feel so much pressure at such an early age. And so for him to see you now in this mode is really important, because if he had grown up seeing you in the other mode, he might not have been able to understand the need for the balance.
Yeah, totally.
So I have to ask you this question, that this just came up over the weekend. So many young women who have had babies feel immense pressure to snap back into their old bodies. And you had the added pressure of trying to return to the stage. Yeah. So how do you deal with that pressure? I mean, there's some people who manage to walk out of the hospital looking like they didn't have a baby, and some people like me who it took years. So
I definitely did not walk out of the hospital looking like amazing and like I did before. And I feel similarly that it took me years, but I feel like I set up the space that I wanted to recover in, and what I wanted, what I wanted motherhood early on to look like for me, which not everyone has that privilege. And I made the decision to step away from the stage for 5 years, leading up to having Jackson, and then in Jackson's, early years. And so I don't feel like I put pressure on myself, because I put myself in a space where I wasn't going to have that type of pressure put on me, which was important for me. I've spent my whole career, since the age of 13 years old, with that type of pressure when it comes to my aesthetic and what I'm putting out there onto a stage, and that my body is my instrument. And so I really gave myself a lot of grace and a lot of time to really focus on Jackson, which it's good and bad, because I do feel like there was a lot of time that I could have been taking better care of myself. Whereas I felt in that moment like I just want to pour all of this into Jackson, but then what am I doing for myself. And I think that it took me some years to really find that balance. And I feel really good about where I am now. Like, even if like this morning, I think I had a 15-minute window where like, I was like, I'm going to walk on the treadmill. I'm going to use this 15 minutes to walk on the treadmill. And it's not even about like, oh, I'm going to burn all these calories, but it's like the mental clarity, just getting, you know, some heat and motion, you know, all of these things that are important and that better prepare me to be present and healthy, and therefore my family, for Jackson, for Olu, and then, you know, in the end for myself. And so it's been a learning lesson, but I definitely feel like I built the space for me to not feel that pressure.
So I really appreciate that. And while it is a privilege to be able to sort of step away, I think the concept of making the space or being present for how you're going to approach it, one can do regardless of whether you're to still have a crazy hour job or not, because you have a child and you have to figure out how it's all going to work, and you have to make it work for yourself.
Exactly.
And so I think it's important for everyone listening and watching. It's sort of, you need to do that no matter what your circumstance is, for your own self care.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think that also comes from having watched my mother, you know, raise 6 children and mostly on her own, and just not ever have that time. And that I just was like, I want to do this because I can too. And it just felt really good to be able to do it.
But I also like how you're in a profession which was extraordinarily physically focused, like all athletic sports, but in yours in particular, you have talked about you being young Black woman in that role, got it from all angles in terms of what a ballerina body looks like. And so you have been the recipient of a lot of conversation and pressure. I guess what doesn't kill you makes you stronger, huh?
Yes.
Because
it can totally strip away, you know, healthy ideas and images of what, you know, what you will continue to be. And I feel like I have a really good hold on what's healthy and kind of the expectations versus like reality. And I feel like that's because of the incredible support that I've had. I've had amazing Black women, particularly in my life, who I think have really helped to shape the way I view myself and what's important and what I value. And I'm very grateful for it.
That's so good to hear. We all need to receive that and be that.
Yes.
So it's really, really important. I want to move on to Life with Jackson.
Yeah.
So first, I want to keep us in the present. And your final performance was, you said, the first time that he had seen you perform, and then he came on stage, he and your husband came on stage with you, and you've said that after that he was a new person, a transformed little boy. Tell me about the transition. What was different for him?
You know, it's so funny. I guess I never really even thought about what a final performance would be like. I never looked at ABT as like the end goal. I always saw it as this amazing platform that I would continue doing so many things with dance as like a tool, as a continuation to do so much more. And so I just never even thought about whether Jackson would be a part of it or what that would look like. And I saw a colleague and friend of mine, Jillian Murphy, who had her farewell performance some months before mine, and she brought her son on stage, and I was on the stage also, you know, giving her flowers, and I was bawling my eyes out, and I was like, okay, I don't even care what Olu has to say. Jackson's going to be out here, because it was just so incredible seeing him see, like, through his eyes, like seeing his mother, and like just that celebration. And so, you know, it was a big change, I think, from like what Olu envisioned also. I think we both have been very private about our lives, about Jackson. And so when I came home and I was like, I don't care what you think, Jackson's coming out there. And he was just like, whoa, okay. Well, all right. I guess that's what's happening. And I do think Jackson's a natural performer. Maybe I'm biased. But he's very comfortable, you know, when he's in front of people. But I didn't know how he was going to respond, being in front of like thousands of cheering dip confetti and all of it. And he walked out with such confidence. And I actually was shocked that Olu wasn't holding his hand, because that was the agreement. Like, I don't want him to run into the orchestra pit. I don't know. You know what I mean? All the things as a mother where I was like, all the things that can go wrong.
Right.
And so when I saw Olu wasn't holding his hand, I'm center stage and I scream at Olu from in the wings. And I say, why aren't you holding his hand? And he looks at me and he's like, he wouldn't let me. And little Jackson came out confident, and he was at one point like waving and blowing kisses to the audience. And there was just this like shift in him, I think, where he saw me in a different light, similarly to how I saw Jillian's son Axel see her. And the next morning, he was telling people that he stole the show. And I'm like, we're telling you that, but you can't actually say it out loud. And there was just kind of like he was standing up taller, and I think just kind of this pride and also seeing possibility. He saw me rehearse in the studio. He's seen me take ballet class. He's seen performances, but I think there was a different pride in like seeing the work that goes into it. And then this is the outcome, which is such a beautiful privilege to be able to stand on a stage and perform for people. And that's actually what's kept him in ballet, is knowing that there's a recital at the end.
That is so good. So when you came on this podcast last, he was such a little baby. Yes. And I was delighted to review that conversation and realize that there were a couple of goals you had in mothering. And so I really want to know how it's gone so far. So the first one, you thought of yourself as the one who was absolutely going to be the disciplinarian. You were going to be the tough mom. And even at 10 months, that was not really happening. So fast forward 3 years later, where are you on this?
Yeah. Am I the disciplinarian?
Are you the tough one?
I think that Olu and I definitely like share in that, and are definitely really partners in kind of meeting Jackson where he is. And I think that's been the difference, is not really understanding that word of discipline, or maybe it just looked different, however many years ago, when my mom was raising me, and that to me, it's less about like control, and it's about, guidance. And I think that's what's changed, is how I'm looking at it. That it's not that, even though it's so funny. I think it was last night I was with him, and he's gotten so good at organizing. That's like his thing. He loves to use that word. I'm organizing my room, Mom.
Oh,
and he's
that's a
cleaning.
good thing.
I know, he's cleaning up his artwork, and I was like, oh, it's so great. And he goes, well, I don't want you to come in here and say, Jackson, pick up those things. And I was like, is that how I sound? Oh my gosh! But I think it's just a different perspective on like what discipline looks like for us. And it's listening. It's thinking about like all the things that have happened in his day leading up to why he's responding in the ways that he is, rather than just saying, I'm going to discipline him and I'm going to tell him this, I'm going to tell him that. Have we been traveling? What has his transition been back to? Has he eaten? What, and just kind of navigating from that lens rather than it being so black and white. But I've definitely I don't feel as guilty if I am more stern.
That's good. That's
than I
good.
was before, where it was like, oh my gosh. I remember we're even navigating, like we were spanked, as kids.
Yes,
Olu and I both were.
Right.
And like, what are we doing with him? And I've definitely, I think twice in his life, I've slapped his little hand. I remember the very first time I did it, I came out of the room crying. With this like guilt, and like Olu and I had already talked, like, we're not going to do that. And then like it happened, and I'm like, oh my gosh. And, and so it's kind of just like going with the flow and feeling it out and reading, him and where he's at.
Yeah. Well, two things I would say. First, with respect to him sort of telling you how he doesn't want to hear, I actually think that's really positive, because as the children get older, when they're out on their own, and I would say that to them, where you're about to do something that you're not sure whether you should do it, I want you to think, my mom would kill me if, and then a line, and then put in whatever you're about to do. As I say to them, you're old enough so that you may still go do it, but what I want you to do is just think about, take that moment to just understand the risks that you're taking.
Yes.
So if he says to you, I don't want you to say, at least he knows what you're going to say.
Yes.
And so it's somewhere in there.
It is. I love that. I love that thought process.
Right, exactly. So, I mean, he's not traumatized. He's just like, he's
taking
learning.
it in.
Right, exactly.
He knows. Well, he was doing, I was very impressed. And then he's like, well, I know that you might say this. So
Right. No, that's good. That's good. And the second thing, spanking. Boy, I've had lots of conversations this season, even with moms about spanking. And while I certainly adhere to the party line, the spanking of old is gone.
Yes.
We're not doing that. But I have to say that this sort of 180 to there's absolutely no circumstance ever where you would ever physically touch your child in a way to make them stop doing something.
Exactly.
I always think, like, what if it's a fork in their hand and they're running for the outlet? I mean,
you're gonna grab them. You're gonna do something.
Something.
Yeah.
I mean, if your child is headstrong, I don't know. They're just saying, please come back. But anyway, so
it's tough. And and Olu, again, Olu and I've had these conversations about what we want to do and we don't want to do. And then like things happen in the moment sometimes. And I think that it's like, not to beat yourself up about it, but to even just re-engage in the conversation again. Like maybe things have shifted and changed, and like just to continue to have the open dialogue.
Absolutely. A couple of other things we talked about back then. We talked about resilience, and it was important to you that he build resilience. And how have you managed to think about that as he's gotten older, and how do you feel that you've been able to do that?
Yeah, Olu's definitely better than me at really giving him the space to learn, to learn by making mistakes. And it's so hard for me. It's so hard for me. Like, I want to overextend myself, and I'm always asking if he needs help, and I'm right there for him. And Olu's really good about like pulling me back, like let him figure it out. And like, that's how he's going to, build that resilience. And it's so important. I mean, I experienced it myself, and I'm so like, that's, I think, one of my best attributes. And it's because I learned on my own, not necessarily completely on my own, but by navigating, by not having, someone over me all the time. And so it's like, I have to constantly remind myself of that, because it's so important. And I see so many kids from this generation, young dancers that have come into ABT, or young people that I mentor, that it's really tough for them to navigate, tough situations. Right. And the idea of what resilience looks like for children today. And it's like, I really want to give him a really good base so that we don't, we're not going to always be there for him, in all of these situations that he's navigating.
It's so hard, in part because what builds resilience hurts along the way.
Yes, which is so tough. I'm even thinking already about his first heartbreak. I literally am. I talk about it all the time. I'm like, oh my gosh, it's going to hurt so much. What are we going to do? And Olu's like, he's 4.
I try to fix everything. It's now become a joke because they understand that I'm not supposed to do that. In fact, just today, my son wasn't feeling well yesterday, and I called him and I said, okay, this is your mom, over-momming, just checking in. I know you're fine, but I can't help it. I got to just make sure. And so I do know that feeling very well. But when I think about the things that have made me more resilient, they were tough things to go through. And so I understand the struggle. Yeah. I think for 2-parent households, it's easier to some degree because one person can take on that. I mean, you can switch over, but my husband would always say to me, they need adversity.
Yes,
so
they need it.
If this is the adverse thing, they're really going to be okay. So I have to keep remembering. It's like, yes, you need it. You really do need adversity.
You need it.
So it's tough.
It's like, step away. Let that kid throw sand at him in the sandbox. Just let it happen. Let him see it. Let's see what he does,
Oh my gosh. I have to say, now I can say it. My least favorite was the park because of the interaction with the others. Like, don't let some little kid.
Right? I'm like, I want to get in that sandbox with you.
I was not a good park mom. I couldn't stand to watch. No.
It's tough.
It's really tough. So another question in the same category, but slightly different. So the world that you inhabited when you were on your own and now with your husband, your child, is pretty extraordinary. I mean, you have made it so. Your talent has taken you to places I'm sure you couldn't imagine when you were 13. So you're raising this adorable son in a world that's vastly different than the one that you grew up in. And we talked about this in the last podcast, but now with 3 more years or 3+ years of mothering, how has that come along? Because I can only imagine, I mean, he's on stage with his mom and there are thousands of people and cheering for him.
Yeah, it's all balance, and something that Olu and I have talked about, even through Olu's upbringing and the things that, I would not say at all that he was privileged, but he did go to private schools and had, some access and opportunity. They didn't have the financial means in a lot of ways, but just what being in diverse situations did for him and how important that is for, Jackson, that he's in private school and he may end up going to private, continuing on in that way. And that we want to be able to have other communities that he's exposed to and that he's a part of, that's allowing him to see and experience different types of people from different walks of life. And I think it's also just the way that we talk about our work and what it means to us. Like, yes, Jackson sees me getting in glam a lot and going to galas. And he's been saying this since he was very little. Oh, you're going to a gala. And I'm like, oh, I don't want this to be like the norm of what he, when he talks about his mom, like, oh yeah, she's in a gown going to a gala.
She broke up dancing and now she dresses up all the time.
Right? I'm like, no, that's not how I want you to see me. But like, I talked to him a lot about my upbringing. Like we have those conversations. And I talked to him about, that I grew up very different from him. And then I, grew up with mostly with my mom, and that I didn't grow up eating shrimp and lobster and crab, and just having him have this different understanding as well as to like the work that I'm doing now. Like he's very aware of what I'm doing with my foundation. He's very aware of the kids that I'm serving and in the communities in the Bronx and in Harlem. And whenever I come home, like I show him pictures of the kids that I was just with and what it is I'm building, and so that there's an appreciation and understanding, I think, for what it is I'm doing, and I don't know. We'll see if it's soaking in, and he's young, but we are having conversations, and he does ask questions, which is great.
It definitely comes from the parents, so you're doing a very good job. And something you said made me think about the concept of privilege. Privilege is not necessarily tied just to economic circumstance. Right. I think access, the privilege of access is one that we can share with everyone. I mean, that's why I do this podcast. I mean, I really believe that people having access to information, to new experiences, to the ability to think of themselves
100%
differently than they have been. In that respect, if you think about it in that way, I think it makes it easier to talk with children about privilege being multifaceted, so that they don't think of themselves with one particular kind of privilege as the only one you want, and then everyone else is not privileged. It really, I do bristle a little at this sort of distinction, having grown up with a lot of experiences others didn't have. There came a point when I was made to feel badly because I'd had this, quote, privilege. It's like, wait a minute. It's not a bad thing if you understand that it doesn't define you.
Totally.
And it just enables you to open the door wider and bring more people in. So I think he's got a good start. I mean, it really does start with the home front. So,
I mean, I feel, even though I didn't grow up with a lot of, financial privilege, the fact that I grew up with the privilege of being exposed to the arts is like so much wealth to me. And I feel like I want to instill that in him, and that I try to, and that it's incredible being able to have the access that we have just by being in New York City. I just got an email today from MoMA about all this free programming and that you can go to and you can experience and see. And like, that's what I want him to experience. It's not so much just about like, the access and privilege because you have the means.
Absolutely. And for our listeners who aren't in New York City, MoMA is the Museum of Modern Art, which if you come to New York, you have to come to, along with the Studio Museum and other museums. But I grew up with a mom who was a school teacher, and so she had her summers off, and she used New York City free opportunities like there was no tomorrow. I mean, we were some free and less expensive I saw Leonard Bernstein in the Young People's Orchestra. I saw Dame Margot Fontein at Swan Lake. My mother was such an enthusiast of my mother loved Lincoln Center.
Yeah.
And she would get the dress rehearsal tickets and the daytime tickets. And so, yeah, there's a lot you can do. There's a lot you can do. And many cities, and wherever you are.
Yes, wherever you are.
There are libraries, there are resources to take your children to where you can just open their minds, their worlds.
Exactly.
It's really amazing. We'll be right back after these messages. I am so excited to share that Ground Control Parenting is working with Donors Choose. Our work is all about supporting Black and brown children, and that means supporting the classrooms and teachers shaping their lives every day. So this season, thanks to Donors Choose, I'm giving my Ground Control Parenting guests a Donors Choose card, a gift card from Donors Choose. They can head to donorschoose.org and they can choose a classroom that resonates with them. It's such a simple way to do so much good. And trust me, the thank you notes you get from the classroom are amazing and so worth it. Thank you, Donors Choose. Welcome back to the show. One more quick question about then and now in terms of Jackson. So is there anything you would tell that mom of the 10-month-old to sort of make her feel better? When you look back, is there anything you wish you'd known?
I think just to not be so hard on myself with, things that I don't know, that I still to this day think about, that I'm like, oh, I can't believe I did that. It's so hard to let go, but we're human. We're human and we make mistakes. And I think it would just be to take it easy. Yeah, to let Olu do more. He's great and he's done so much, but it was just, I've always just, in those early stages, it was no, I have to do these things. I have to meal prep for a week on this. And it's why are you doing this to yourself? You have nothing to prove.
Yeah. Yes. Everyone out there, be kinder to yourself.
Yes, be kinder.
You got to pace yourself.
Yeah.
So I want to move away from Misty Mom to Misty's next chapter. You've been an amazing ballerina and you've been an author, a producer, a philanthropist. So as you're approaching this next chapter, do you feel like you want to do more of everything, or do you want to look in a different direction altogether?
All of it. All of it. I feel like I had that time I was telling you about, in those 5 years where I really kind of scaled back. I mean, I still was doing a lot. I'd written a lot of books in that time, and I started my foundation and
Scaled back.
Production company.
That you weren't doing all that and dancing all the time.
Exactly. I had stepped back from dancing, and I just feel I feel like I'm in such a great position, and I want to take advantage of this opportunity. And I'm still continuing on with everything that I'm doing and extending more. I think in terms of just growing my brand in a real kind of foundational way that'll be lasting, and thinking about Jackson and his future, thinking about what will become of my foundation post me, how kind of legacy building, and it's really exciting, but I'm continuing with writing books. I will continue to do that for as long as people want to hear from me.
Yes, I want to hear. Tell me about Letters to Misty, which sounds amazing.
Yeah.
There were actual letters.
Well, it was inspired by the fact that I've been receiving letters from fans since I started dancing, literally since I was 13. And I would hold on to these letters and I would respond. And just the idea of what it means to receive, advice, and especially at that, in that kind of middle grade age. And so it was really based around receiving letters from young people and giving them advice that wasn't directly related to being a dancer, but kind of all that I learned through my art form and coming up in the field and from a 13-year-old, until now. And so, all of my books are really based on my experiences and around dance. But the next book that I'm actually in the midst of editing at the moment, which is it's like a novel, and it's for that middle grade age range. It's really exciting. It's Firebird Waltz. Oh. And it's about this kind of magical art school. So it's not just dancers, it's, you know, different mediums, and really about the power of art. And that, to me, it's bigger than us. And I think that it's like having a superpower. And this idea of all of these kids coming together and sharing in this, you know, similar experience and through their art. So
I love that. And I really love the audience you were focused on, because for so many years, the middle school audience was sort of not
behind.
particularly focused on. It was either, you know, the young children's books or high school reading material. And so it's really good. Those are such formative years. So
totally.
I'm excited for that. And then you also last year released the second of your Bunhead series.
Which is a bit younger. It's not the YA age range. It's more in like the Jackson, you know, now, like that age range. But it's exciting to be able to be building a series, and that's what Bunheads is. And I'm already have the concepts for Bunheads 3 and 4.
Wow!
So it's really cool to be building on these characters, and that are you know, not what we're typically used to seeing when we see these young ballet books. We have focus on boys and the character of the boys in ballet, and that and all of these different little characters come from such different worlds, and I really wanted to focus on the communities and the cultures that they come from. You know, we have the most recent book, Bunheads 2, is really focused on someone who was my best friend growing up, Catalina Maese, who's a Mexican American, and you get to see the culture of her family and like the beautiful visuals that Seitor Fiagibe was the illustrator, and you know, the house that she grew up in, which was like incredible and colorful and just full of life. And you see it in this book, and you see how she's bringing her culture into the studio and kind of sharing in it through the ballets that we perform. And so it's cool to be able to have like a different perspective on who can be in ballet, and that they all have this common experience and community that they're building through their art.
Oh, that is so great. And I'm so glad that you're including boys, because now, fortunately, culturally, boys dancing is more and more appreciated, accepted, but just really heralded. And so it's really good. It's good that you're giving boys an opportunity to be able to openly express themselves in all different kinds of dance.
Absolutely. And we need more books like that. I mean, even, you know, there's a great book called Boys Dance that Jackson reads. Like, we try to get him to read it every weekend before he goes to his Alvin Ailey ballet class, just to remind him of like the other boys, and, you know, to get him hyped up.
So, just to wrap up on this next chapter for you, you have said that becoming a mother changed your priorities, and it reminded you that representation matters, our children are watching. How does the fact that Jackson's watching impact how you're thinking about your next chapter?
It's a huge part of, you know, I think what's shaping how I'm thinking about everything that I'm doing. I definitely have had a focus on the youth throughout my career, and the importance of giving back, and because of how I looked at myself, and now I'm looking at him, you know, whereas before it was like I didn't have all the opportunity in the world, and I want to be able to, you know, set the bar higher in terms of like what we're giving our Black and brown communities like access to when it comes specifically to ballet, not just kind of blanketed dance, but ballet in particular, and allowing them to see themselves in that space. But now that like I have Jackson, it's like even more nuanced, I think, in how I'm thinking about all the projects that I'm a part of, and how he sees the work that I'm doing. I think that he knows that if I'm spending time away from him, that there's like a bigger purpose, and that it's not kind of these frivolous things that I'm out there doing, and that it's meaningful. And I think I've always looked at my work that way anyways, that, you know, all of the partnerships and collaborations that I have, that they're for a bigger purpose, and that it's not just kind of one-off deals and things like that, but it's aligned with my values and my morals.
That has always been the case, and it's exciting to think about how now that you have Jackson watching, it'll even encourage you to do more. Just a couple of questions before we close. So I've been thinking about this a lot recently. There's a lot of pressure on women who have extraordinary careers to make motherhood look effortless. I mean, you know, thanks to all the social media,
Right.
you have this incredible life, and you also have these incredible children, and you
Right.
always look rested. Now, you have done a very good job in your posting of, you showed us your recovery. I remember the process of
Yes.
coming back from a hip replacement. But how do you want to push back on that narrative?
Yeah.
Because we all know, anybody who is a mom
not
knows that it's not always glamorous.
It's not as glamorous. I mean, I feel like I've always needed to be authentic and honest about my experiences. Like I've never, as much as I absolutely love and respect my art form, I can't just go out there and say it's all roses and it's perfect and like I have to criticize the things that I want to see improved as well. And so I feel like that's just kind of always been my approach. And I think similarly, in parenting, like there is no perfect experience. And, I think that's one of the negative things about social media is that you can kind of display whatever it is you want to, and it's not always real and authentic. And sometimes it does us a disservice.
Right.
And I think there's something so beautiful about sharing in our like human experiences. Community is so important to me. So how are we using each other to be better and to learn? And you can't really get to that if you're kind of putting on this glossy facade. You can't really get there.
So true. I mean, one of the advantages of being as old as I am and being focused on parenting is I can look at some of these influencers, the younger influencers, who are very much in the moment of whatever they're doing and it's working. And I think, oh, that's great, except that the arc of parenting is long and
long.
it bends.
Yes.
And so
exactly.
it's really important to have the perspective of things. This could actually be really great right now, but this very same thing may not work with another child, or
100%.
this very same thing in 5 years,
yes,
that child will tell you that was a terrible thing. So I want to end as we began, which is talking about self-care. So your self-care journey has been, it's been, you've been focused on it for a while, but it's definitely taken on different, it's looked different at different times. So moving forward, now let's say, even though you're not at 100%, you're close, what does self-care look like for you going forward?
It's so different right now than it's ever been. I've I feel like as an athlete, I've prioritized my body and my training so much. And to me, like that was self-care. And there were so many things that I was neglecting because it didn't feel important enough. And I think that as a mom, I just have to be more like holistic about what self-care is. And something even as simple like I've never been good about like taking care of my skin and just like little things like that are big things.
Right.
That I've like stepped back and I've really started to think about, and not just as like, oh, I want to look better, but these are moments that I can have for myself. And I think that's how I'm looking at it, and how I'm kind of valuing this time that I like, even, the 15 minutes on the treadmill, like I said this morning. I have a different perspective, whereas before it was like, I thought of self-care as like this focus, the training, which is not, that's my work.
Right.
It is a part of it, but it's also my work, and to kind of separate those things and what that looks like, and just being kinder and gentler in general, which I have the privilege of doing now as I'm not actively on stage performing classical ballet. Which, I did that work and it was incredible. And I feel like I can't do that kind of work anymore. And I have to grow and evolve. And there's something so incredible about knowing that I'll continue to grow and evolve, and self-care will change and look differently. And it's exciting to think about all the ways in which I will. Like I just spent the last couple of days with my mother-in-law and just looking at the ways in which she takes care of herself and what's important to her. And it's so beautiful to see it,
Absolutely. As you were talking, I was thinking that we tend to think of self-care as the means to an end.
Yes.
Like we're taking care of ourselves so that we'll look better. But I think that we should think about it as we need it for its own self. We need it we should be present in the self-care, and we're not doing it to get better. We're doing it because we need it to stay as good as we are and to feel good in the moment. So
yes, absolutely. Said beautifully.
Oh, well, I am so excited for you for this next chapter. And it's thrilling for us all to watch. And so while you might not be on the stage, there will be throngs of people cheering for you. Or for wherever we are.
Thank you.
So quickly, before we go, I'm going to ask you to do what you did the last time, the updated version of the GCP lightning round.
Okay.
So 4 quick questions. Favorite poem or saying?
I think that something that's been really valuable throughout my career, and it still is to this point, is just like not letting other people's words impact or define me. Oh. And I think that's even important to extend to Jackson as well.
Really good. Your favorite 2 children's books, and you can say your own.
I do love Firebird. It's one of my favorites. Christopher Myers is a brilliant illustrator and author, and we collaborated together on that book, and it was so meaningful for so many reasons. But I would say as a child, Where the Wild Things Are was one of my favorites, and I've thought about it a lot. Like there's so much imagination and creativity and curiosity that comes with that. And it's so funny because we talked about it last night, Jackson and I, just about like what are his favorite books. And Dragons Love Tacos has been one of his
I love that
favorite
title.
books for so long. And I remember when I first started reading him this book, I was like so annoyed by it. It was like I was trying to like make it into something that it wasn't. And it made me look back at like Where the Wild Things Are. Like, and it's very similar in this kind of like out there. And it's like, this is how a child is thinking at this age, which is so beautiful. And I felt like I connected with Jackson, like at this age with these 2 books.
That's great. Okay. A mom moment that you'd like to do over, not because it was so good.
I know, not to relive it.
Yeah.
There's so many, we talked about it earlier, just this idea of like, kind of like, continuing to hold on to these things that I like did wrong and I can't get it out of my mind. But I remember the first time like we were in Paris and I turned my head, actually a bee had stung me in the armpit and I was so distracted and Jackson started walking out into the street and it was his grandma who grabbed him. And to this day, I'm like, if I could read you that moment and like, you know what I mean? Like, it's like crazy how these things stick with you and it's not realistic at all. Like in terms of just like that, like things happen and you've got to let them go.
You were telling your younger self to take it easy.
Take it easy. And it's like, I want to continue to tell myself that.
Okay, so now let's shift to a moment where you nailed it.
I think in times of like being able to connect with Jackson and being there and for him to feel that love and support from us are moments where I think both Olu and I are like, yes, like that was good how we handled that and how we like took the moment that, it wasn't some big grand thing that he accomplished, but that we could see growth and that, just a small like win and accomplishment for him.
Those little small wins, they're the best.
Yeah. Yeah.
Misty, thank you so much.
Thank you.
It's been delightful, as it always is.
It
but
is.
Thank you so much for coming back.
Thank you for having me back.
My pleasure. I hope everyone listening enjoyed this conversation, that you'll come back for more. Please subscribe, rate, and review where you find your podcasts and tell your friends. For more parenting info and advice, please check out the Ground Control Parenting website at www.groundcontrolparenting.com. You can also find us on Facebook and Instagram at Ground Control Parenting and on LinkedIn under Carol Sutton Lewis. Until the next time, take care and thanks for listening.